Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, last week for my 300 subscribers special, I dove into all 4 seasons of Transformers Cyberverse. I went over the plot, spoilers of course, went over the characters a bit, but I said there that was just the first part of a 2-part series. And here is the second part. So, in this part I'm going to dive into a lot of the characters I picked out, because this show's characters just really stick out in my mind compared to a lot of other versions of these Transformers characters. So, yeah, let's do this. But before I dive in, I'd like to recommend my previous video. I've done a few voice reels before. That was not just Sonic or just Transformers. That one was a whole bunch of characters, and I'd appreciate it if you check that out. So without further ado, let's do it to it. So first, I have to talk about Cyberverse's version of Optimus Prime. This is one of my favorite Optimus Primes, up there with G1, Animated, and Transformers 1. So at first, this Optimus seems like your traditional Optimus Prime, or seems kind of like how he is in Prime, except, a little less dull. He's just the serious Autobot leader, the commander, the guy who makes the decisions, but one thing I like that the show establishes is that Optimus can get a little not frustrated per se, but more so he's just a little perplexed by some of the stuff that happens to him. And I just enjoy seeing him try to react to that. But another part that I think really makes this version stand out is that Optimus I mentioned in the first part, that this show really dives into the fact that the bots and cons have been fighting for so long. This war is basically just what all they know. It's just what they do. So whenever Optimus is put into a situation that doesn't require combat or being some big leader, he doesn't really know what to do. In the section of episodes where the Autobots are on the Ark heading back to Cybertron, one of them, they all throw a surprise party. And when Optimus is given a distress signal to come to one part of the ship, he's super freaked out and rolls in. And then he just sees them all say, "Surprise!" And then he doesn't know what to do, so he just activates his face plate so you can't see his expressions. And yeah, the episode does have some conflict in it, which is handled pretty well. It just goes into the fact that Optimus just isn't really that social of a person. He just prefers to spend his time just sitting or standing alone, gazing up at the stars, and I think it's done really well. It's genuinely interesting. Or, as I mentioned in my previous video, it's that in this show, yes, Optimus and Megatron once knew each other until they got into some arguments and they ended up fighting each other and all that. Except this show dives into the fact that even though they've been fighting each other for millions of years and they knew each other before the war, they don't actually know that much about each other. Yeah, great version of Optimus Prime. Also, he does not die. Thank the Matrix. Hot Rod. I love Cyberverse Hot Rod. By far the best version of the character. I actually got to meet the guy who voices him, Travis Arts, at TFCon. I have his autograph. Really nice guy, but Hot Rod in this show is great. This show manages to have Hot Rod, Bumblebee, and Cheetor exist not only at the same time, but together as a friend group, and they don't blend together in the same personality. Hot Rod here is, you get a bit of that turbo-revving young punk you see in the 1986 movie, and you get some of that. That's mostly what his character is here, but not only is he pretty fun and entertaining, in Season 3, in the beginning of Season 3, it seems like he died. Then it turns out he didn't, but when he fell into a bunch of energon waste, his paint job became black. And he leads, or tries to lead anyway, with a slightly more serious voice, a group of Steelist characters and Soundwave against the Quintesson invasion to save all the other Cybertronians. It is done so well. Because there we finally get to see Hot Rod be the leader, like Rodimus Prime, except this time it's under different circumstances and he's still called, Hot Rod. But he's still got some of his trademark personality he has in the show. Like when he and Soundwave are found by the Quintesson scientist, who apparently, and since the Quintessons travel throughout the multiverse, when he sees Soundwave, he says, "You're blue. I don't have a blue one." And Hot Rod's response to seeing all the Soundwaves is just, why would he collect Soundwaves and not Hot Rods? I love that line. So yeah, I really like Cyberverse Hot Rod. I also like just the way he bounces off the other characters. He has this sort of rivalry, friendship with Soundwave. He's best friends with Bumblebee and Cheetor. It's handled well. Yeah, not much more to say. Cyberverse Hot Rod is just really good. Bumblebee in this show, also really good. So in the first season, they do that whole annoying radio thing, except this show obviously couldn't afford to get an actual radio clip, so they just had the actor do a bunch of random lines that sound like things you'd hear on TV or the radio. And Jeremy Levy did the best he could, but he is really annoying doing that. It's not his fault though. It's the fact that the plot requires this. But since season one dives into Bumblebee's memory so much, you also just get to hear him play a regular Bumblebee, and yeah, he's a really good Bumblebee. And then in season two, they just drop the whole radio voice thing and never bring it up again. Yeah, so yeah, how is he in the show? I like him. He's kind of like how he is in Transformers Prime, except he can actually speak, which is very much appreciated. Yeah, I don't like voiceless Bumblebee. I mean, the show doesn't take it to the extreme like in Transformers 1 where he is comic relief, but, you know. So this show plays with the fact that, since he's Bumblebee, they gotta give him a lot of screen time, they gotta make him seem like he can be a really capable warrior and all that, but it is handled pretty well. Again, he's just an entertaining character. I don't really know what to say about him other than that. I just like this version of Bumblebee. I will say it's really annoying that in season 3, the show has changed from Transformers Cyberverse to Transformers Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures. That is such a stupid title. And Bumblebee isn't even in that much of season 3. After the premiere, the season goes into the Quintesson invasion, which spans most of it, and he's gone for most of the Quintesson story arc. I mean, then he's the main character of the season 3's final arc, but it's not that long. And yeah, season 4, he's not in it that much. Still, I like his Bumblebee. I like his friendship with Windblade too, that's nice. Grimlock. So this show is one of the most interesting incarnations of Grimlock to me. So while he's in his dino mode, he's still, the Me Grimlock destroy! But me Grimlock's still taller than you. But when he's in robot mode, he speaks very eloquently and he's very proper and nice. Kind of like the Hulk. It's a nice touch they added. Again, and one of the reasons I like this show is that it's able to keep these characters familiar, but they still feel distinct that these are specific versions of them. They don't just blend together. And yeah, I really like Grimlock here. I mentioned the episode where the Autobots throw Optimus a surprise party. That's his thing. It's mentioned in this show that Grimlock just throws parties, and I love it. So this show slightly changes up the Autobots' backstory by saying that no, the Ark crashed on Earth 65 million years ago. Grimlock was the only one to get out at first, when that's how he scanned dinosaurs when he get his dino mode, and then eventually he just went back into stasis when the meteor was gonna come and destroy all the dinosaurs. So yeah. Season 1 has a bit of a story arc with him that's alright, because again, Season 1 of Cyberverse, as I mentioned in my last video, is not that good. It's got some good episodes, but overall, Season 2 through 4, vast improvement. But he's still pretty entertaining here, as he is pretty entertaining throughout the rest of the show. There's an episode where RC rides Grimlock like a horse when he's in his dino mode, and it's hilarious. In fact, RC and Grimlock have a lot of interaction in this show. Again, I like how this show just gives new sides to these characters. So we see RC and Grimlock are treasure hunting buddies, I guess. It's such a weird combination of characters, but it works really well. Yeah. Cheetor. So, I think I'd heard of Beast Wars when I went in to watch the show, but I didn't know who Cheetor was. So this is my first time I saw Cheetor. So, in this show, he is the guardian of the Allspark. He was created by it to protect it. And he has to judge, if someone finds it, he has to judge to see if the person is worthy of the Allspark. Yeah. And after the Allspark gets stolen by Starscream and all that stuff, he joins the Autobots, and he just tries to become one of them, I guess. He becomes friends with Hot Rod and Bumblebee. I just like it. Again, much like some of the other characters, there isn't a ton to say, but he's just really entertaining. I like the little bit of spice he adds to the dynamic of the team, and he sticks around for a while. He sacrifices himself in the first 4 episodes of season 3, or I guess 4th episode of season 3, in the whole battle for Cybertron 4-parter to save the Allspark from Shockwave's evil corruption, which doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Yeah, I like Cheetor here, and I like that he doesn't come back either. And they actually do give you some time to mourn his death, so yeah, it's done nicely. Great version of Cheetor. When I was at TFCon, I asked Travis Arts at this Cyberverse panel. Voice of Windblade was also there. He said that he was a huge Beast Wars fan as a kid, so I asked him, yeah, what was it like for Chiyor to be on Beast Wars? Naturally, he said, yeah, it was really cool. Or not Beast Wars, or Cyberverse, yeah. Megatron. This is one of the most underrated Megatrons, in my opinion. He may not carry the same kind of presence that he does in animated and Prime, nor does he have the same kind of depth he does in Transformers 1. But, and I count Beast Wars Megatron as a separate character, by the way, just that's why I didn't mention him, but this is still a great Megatron. Great design. Great vocal performance by Mark Thompson. What else do you need for Megatron? He's threatening. He's smart. But we also get some interesting moments with him that spice him up as more than just the generic cartoon villain. Or, I guess I don't really like saying that, but you know. So, I mentioned in the first part of the series, yeah, how the whole scene of where he seems to have killed Starscream, and he doesn't even look mad that he's beating up Starscream to a pulp, giving him the worst beating I've ever seen in this entire franchise. He doesn't say anything to him. He just looks disappointed that his second in command betrayed him, which you'd think that he would have expected this because yeah, he's Starscream. It's implied they've done this whole song and dance for the whole time, but I think that's why Megatron looks so disappointed. He's just thinking, you're even after all this time, you're still trying to betray me. You still really think you can take over? Then you'd think, why doesn't he look smug about it? Because I don't think he's thinking, ha, what a loser you are, Starscream. He's thinking, I pity you. You're still going at this. Are you insane or something? I think there's a lot to say about it. I mean, and then after he kills Starscream to deceive the humans, thinking the Decepticons are good and all that, he has a Twitch stream, I guess, of all the Decepticons honoring their fallen partner Starscream. May he rest in peace. And yeah, you get him to just be your typical Megatron throughout the rest of the show. Until he's one of the bots taken offline during the Quintesson invasion, so when he comes back, he just dives into the multiverse with Dead End before coming back at the end with the Insecticons and Astro Train of all characters, who is huge this time, which makes sense because mass shifting is kind of weird. But anyway, and he warns everyone how this guy is gonna come to his universe and he wants revenge on our Megatron, and it's just Megatron X, or the other one who is just Megatron but taller and with a black paint job. And then he kills Megatron and he says, Prime, one shall stand, one shall fall. Yeah, and then he's just dead. It's kind of rushed, but it's not too big a deal. I mean, one thing I like that the show tackles that once Megatron, Starscream, and Shockwave are gone, you know, the most evil, awful Decepticons that are irredeemable, the Autobots and Decepticons are able to make a peace. It was basically these people, these horrible people at the top, that were the reason Cybertron could never have peace. And with them gone, they finally did. Because as I mentioned before, they've been fighting for so long they can't even remember why. They just do it because it feels like they have to do this. But with no one barking orders at them anymore, telling them, come on, time to destroy those Autobots, they're able to make a truce. Starscream. Oh yeah. Since this show was my introduction to Transformers, this gave me about the best introduction to Starscream you could possibly get. He's got the voice, he's got the design, he's got the crazy ambitions. He's Starscream. He's my third favorite version of the character. Can't be animated in Prime, but he's still great. As Paperplane said, Prime Starscream is a coward, animated Starscream is conniving, and Cyberverse Starscream is maniacal. That's a good way to describe it. This show basically charts Starscream's descent into madness. Because in Season 1, we just see him occasionally, he's not doing too much. Then in Season 2, it begins the season with him just, after he gets so furious that Megatron demoted him, he just decides to blow up Megatron, I guess, and then he stands on his corpse and says, I'm the leader of the Decepticons now, guys! Alright, we're leaving here! And then Megatron comes back, beats him up, as I mentioned before, tries to kill him, but Starscream survives because of, Cheeto or something? I'm not really sure. Everyone thinks he's dead, except, for some reason, the other Seekers aren't listening to Slipstream. They're just working for someone. They take Vector Sigma and everything, which, yeah. The Decepticons just have Vector Sigma. This is completely out of nowhere and is never explained, but whatever. So yeah, they're working for Starscream, who steals the Allspark, kills them once he shows them how powerful he is now, and then he just slowly decides he's gonna have revenge on all Autobots and Decepticons as he slowly grows more and more crazy with power. And then if he's defeated by his own ego and the matrix of leadership somehow, and then the Autobots lock him up on the Ark as a prisoner. And we get a few scenes when the Autobots are in space of him having therapy sessions with Teletran X in his prison cell. It's just really funny. But eventually he flies out of the Ark, gets tossed out, and you think, oh, he's flying into the vacuum of space, never to be seen again. Farewell, Starscream. But nope, of course not, because you can't keep him down that easily. So, how did the Quintessons invade Cybertron? Easy. Starscream landed on their ship. He told them about the Allspark and all that, so they are now draining the Allspark's energy from Cybertron, which will kill Cybertron, and they'll be able to kill all Cybertronians. And what does Starscream get as a reward for telling them all this? They turn him into a Quintesson judge. So his head is... he has a floating head now. This is so insane, and I love it. I have vague memories of watching this for the first time and just thinking, wait, what? Starscream is a Quintesson judge? Or as this show says, Quintesson. Whatever. And yeah, again, as I mentioned before, Cyberverse Starscream is maniacal. So even though now he has all this power, and the Quintessons to basically judge whether or not they should destroy a universe or not. So he has the authority to destroy his universe, and he says, I'm gonna do it! And he gathers all the Autobots and Decepticons in front of him, he gloats in their faces, talks about how great he is and how powerful he is, and how he's gonna destroy them all! But he won't do it until he finds Optimus and Megatron. And while it's true the bots and cons aren't entirely sure where they are, they just decide to say stuff like, oh, I heard they were at the Energon beaches. Oh, no, 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 they were out there instead. And he just gets furious with them until he finally is defeated once and for all. And then in Season 4, the Cybertronians are really scared of some big ominous threat. One of them says, I heard it was the ghost of Starscream. I love this show. Soundwave. Best Soundwave ever, and it's not even close. G1 Soundwave is good. Who doesn't like him? He's cool. Frank Welker did a great job with the voice, and I guess whoever did the filter. I don't know how they made a filter like that. But he's not really much of anything, which, sure, he doesn't need to be. He's G1 Soundwave. What more do you want from him? In Prime, he's essentially the same, except he doesn't even talk. Which, yeah, it does work in the context of that show. And he is cool and all, but again, it's just... he's Soundwave. What are you supposed to expect from him? In the movies he talks, but he's just still Megatron's evil lieutenant. I think Cybertron did some interesting new stuff with him, but I haven't watched Cybertron. So yeah, before Cyberverse, Soundwave was just expected to be Soundwave, and nobody had any problem with that because he was cool. But this show took it a step further. It wasn't gonna settle for good enough. It was going to make Soundwave a super interesting and memorable character while still not completely changing him. So the show starts out with your average Soundwave. He does talk a lot more, and I don't think he has a filter on his voice. I'm not entirely sure. But he's mostly just one of Megatron's enforcers. That's it. But Season 3 permanently changes his character forever. So, how does that go? So, when the Resistance are trying to free more bots from the Quintesson's loop, Soundwave is incorrectly unplugged from it. And he wants to defeat the Quintessons on his own terms. He wants to take Hot Rod's place as leader. He's going to do things his way. And things do not go well. Eventually, the Quintessons catch him and Hot Rod, and they lock them in this infinite void where they have to continuously buff out cosmic rust because, if it gets to them, they're gonna die. And eventually, he's freed, and he and Hot Rod meet the Quintesson judge, or Quintesson scientist, which is actually before that. We get all sorts of great moments with Soundwave. He's cool. But one scene this show does give us during this whole arc is how Soundwave met Laserbeak. But usually Laserbeak is just Soundwave's little drone. That's it. He doesn't need to be anything else. But in the beginning of an episode, it shows a whole flock of robot birds, I guess, flying around Cybertron, and Soundwave captures one of them, and he says, "I will call you Laserbeak." And he just keeps him as his pet. This show really establishes that Laserbeak isn't just Soundwave's drone. He's his pet. He's like his dog. And I really like that. And when the Autobots and Decepticons have a temporary truce where Cybertron is split in half, Soundwave seems to have been demoted. It's not explicitly stated, but considering how he's working with Shadow Striker, who was most definitely demoted, it seems that because he was helping the Autobots so much during the arc, Megatron probably sees him as a failure now. And yeah, once Megatron is dead, he just really works with the bots. Once the Autobots and Decepticons are finally able to come together, he's one of the leaders of Cybertron. But when the mercenaries led by Sound Blaster, Soundwave's old rival, show up, Sound Blaster says, "I'm going to take away the one thing you actually care about." And he steals Laserbeak. And Soundwave is the one bot he and his team decide not to freeze in time because he wants to gloat in Soundwave's face. Of course, things are resolved and he gets Laserbeak back. But in the final episode, he sacrifices himself to defeat Tarn with the words, Tarn inferior, Soundwave most superior. He blows up, Tarn is completely destroyed, and everyone is just sad that Soundwave had to die, and they hold a funeral for him and everything. And McAdams, and they all drink to his name. Hara gives a kind of joking memorial about him. And the Optimus says the words, "This day, all are one." And they all just hug. Some of the characters just hug, I guess, and the show ends, and it's all really nice, and I cried. Just wow. That is so impressive. This show kind of is essentially... This version of Soundwave is essentially what the Archie comics did for a lot of Sonic characters. Yeah, we like them. They're cool and all, but they're just, they are who they are. But this decides to give an interesting extra layer to these characters, and I really appreciate that. Cyberverse Soundwave is awesome. And yeah, he still has your trademark Soundwave personality. Shockwave. Shockwave in Cyberverse takes many cues from how he was in Prime. He's cold, calculating. He just cares about pure logic. Except this version of the character seems to get a little more frustrated. There's an episode where he kidnaps Wheeljack to help him build something to find the Allspark, and Wheeljack just really gets on his nerves. It also seems like Megatron gets on his nerves. In fact, it seems like everyone gets on his nerves. I guess a lot like in the Marvel comic, he sees himself as the perfect leader, except he never says this. He still follows Megatron. There's also an episode where he seems to have a rivalry with Soundwave, which is never mentioned ever again, never goes anywhere. Kind of a shame. That would have been interesting. I mean, Shockwave, Soundwave. And he sacrifices himself at the beginning of season 4 or 3. Megatron says, "If I can't have the Allspark, no one can." So he tells Shockwave to shoot his evil spark into the Allspark, which is going to corrupt and destroy it. I don't know how that's supposed to work. I don't even know why this version of Shockwave would be willing to do that, but whatever. Shockwave dies, and yeah. Yeah, that's not exactly the best, but when Shockwave is on screen, he gets a fair bit of screen time, he's really good. The show also gave him that weird spider tank vehicle mode for the first time, which is interesting, I guess. It's a shame in Earthspark they decided to make the cold, logic-based, unfeeling, mad scientist a guy who's actually just misunderstood and not really that bad, guys. Just like they did to Starscream, the treacherous backstabber who you're supposed to absolutely hate his guts. Which is why I'm glad in Season 2 of Earthspark they decided to say, Starscream's a bad guy. Make him a bad guy. Except that's a whole other thing, and I don't want to get into that, whatever. Cyberverse Shockwave is cool. Dead End. If you're just thinking, wait, who's Dead End? He's one of the Stunticons, right? I didn't even know who the Stunticons were when I watched this show. For a while, I don't think I did either. But this show basically does for Dead End what Animated did for Swindle. He takes a random combiner character. Okay, Swindle has a little more personality than the other combiner characters, but he takes a random combiner character and makes him really cool. So, all the old G1 characters back in the 80s have their own character bios, but since when would you actually get to see most of them as characters? So this show dives into the fact that Dead End is supposed to be some kind of big pessimist. He just walks around kind of angry at everyone. That kind of character. And it's done really well. He's one of the, as I said, the Quintesson arc is basically a bunch of D-list characters and then Hot Rod and Soundwave. He's part of those D-list characters. In fact, for a while, I actually thought he was an original character, because he may as well be one, let's be honest. And yeah, he's part of the Resistance. He joins Megatron's quest in the multiverse, and he comes back with him with the Insecticons and Astro Train. He has this kind of banter with Astro Train. Hey, why not mix and match random characters? Interesting to see how they interact with each other. And he eventually just fades into the background during season 4, which is fine. Again, may not sound like as much to say about him, but if you actually watch the show, which I hope you have if you're watching this video, I spoil it rotten here, you can definitely understand why Denon is such a great character. In conclusion, Transformers Cyberverse is definitely an underrated masterpiece. I really love this show. And if you haven't seen it in a while, go watch it again. If you've never seen it before, well, I already spoiled it for you, so, whatever, but hey, go watch it anyway. It's great. I appreciate you guys for helping me reach the 300 subscribers milestone. I'm almost to 400 now. I'm really proud of how much this channel has grown. My next video will probably be, wouldn't be my Sonic 3 review, because the movie hasn't come out just yet. Haven't seen it yet. Okay, my next video, well, it'll be just west of weird.